Good morning. My name is Kristen Thorne, and I'm the Provider Resource Specialist for the County Board. I'd like to welcome you to today's provider meeting. For those of you who are attending in Zoom, please make sure you put your name and your email in the chat so I can make sure I get a certificate to you. And also, if you have any questions, please put your question in the chat and we'll address those as we go on. For those of you in person, if you're not familiar, restrooms are out the door, down the hallway to the right. And please put your cell phones on silence. If you need to answer your phone, please go outside the room and take any of your calls. I don't have any announcements for today, so I'm going to hand it over to Rachel McCoy.
Do you want me to stand here?
Wherever you
I
like.
wasn't sure where to go.
I'll follow you.
Zoom. Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to take a very small amount of time to talk about some good things that we have going on. And then I'm going to give most of the time to Starfire because they have a lot of good things to talk about. But my typical role when I speak at provider meetings is to talk about fulfilling lives. Some of you guys might remember before we did a little bit of relationship mapping and some asset mapping and some gifts and things like that we discussed. But mostly the last couple of months we've been talking about vision for the agencies, different provider agencies, and purpose. So this is kind of going to lead into that. Aaron from the Center for Disabilities is here and he's going to stand up and talk about some of the things, some of the really great progress that they've had recently with some of the different person-centered practices that he's been putting into place. So I'm going to let him discuss all the good things that he's had happening, but I wanted to just talk about how they've allowed us to come in and we're really excited about that. They're the first ADS that's been like, hey, come in and let us help you. So we're really proud of the things that he's doing and we're really proud of how far they're coming and we're all work in progress, but we want to kind of celebrate him today because they're doing a really great job at the center.
Thanks, Rachel. First, I want to say that it's not a me thing. I've been with the center since 2013, but I haven't been with the ADS program only since July. Up till about 3 or 4 years I drove, and then between then and last year I did billing and statistics and things like that. So I couldn't do it without the team that we have. I really couldn't because they've basically trained me in what I've been doing. So 3 weeks ago you guys came up? 3 weeks ago, Tim and Bridget came up from Starfire and they were going over graphics and visions for individuals. And with the new things that we've been doing with the county board here, I really wanted to lay down my vision. And I wanted to be visual because I work better on visuals. So the vision I had, and this is where I started with the vision of we're out of the buildings. We're in the community. There's no reason for a building anymore except office work. Okay? These individuals deserve to be a part of the community and life. And so that brings me to where we are now. I was bummed out drawing this side. It really sucked. You can ask Rachel.
It was very sad.
Doing this and just kind of moping at the wall going, I don't want to do this anymore because it was depressing. But the vision I see now is when people in the community that don't have disabilities, they see a place like a day center, then they get these thoughts and comments like they're their own community, they don't need us. They can't do the things that we do, like play basketball or go on hikes or just can't do anything. And they don't need us and we don't need them. And then I see our people and they're looking out the windows, they're seeing things that people want to do and they want to do that. So talking with the team, this is our action steps. We're going to do this forward together towards hope and change. And that was one of the biggest issues that we had when I first started as the ADS manager. The team was very discombobulated, disconnected. There was strife but through Kyle's help with some leadership tips and meetings, we're all on the same page now. I had a meeting Monday and there was no complaints, not one. which is the first time in quite a while. We're going to do new person-centered discovery processes. We're developing those. Right now, we're doing asset mappings, interest inventories, but we're tweaking those. We're still discovering new things, new processes that we haven't done before. But it's a struggle. We had a meeting with Pam last week, sometime. And, she brought the point up that, we're new to this. We've got to come up with our own stuff because there's not much stuff out there. So with the new person-centered discovery processes, we're also working on new person-centered practices. And just through those few things so far, we've got one individual who is now volunteering every week at Geneva Hills, which is a kids camp through the summer, but he started now. He's hanging out with two guys. It's just him and those two guys doing maintenance, firewood, trim in cabins, repairs in the cabins. And then this summer, in spring, when the kids camp start, and this is the part he's looking forward to, is leading activities with the kids, helping those kids fish, archery, games, campfires, all those kinds of things. Then our other person, she really likes to help people. And so she's now once a week helping on Fridays stock a food pantry for service on Saturdays. So again, I can't thank my staff enough, and I don't like to call them my staff. I don't like to be called their boss. It drives me nuts when they say that. I just consider myself a part of their team doing the things they don't like to do. So, but someone's got to do it. So again, I really appreciate what Starfire's done the last couple of weeks. I've really been looking through the blogs and researching other places that do similar what you guys do. And that's the vision I have. I hope to get there soon, but I couldn't have done it personally without my team or without Kyle, Rachel, Pam, and the others at the board. And I really appreciate you guys. So I'm done.
Nice job.
Anything else, Rachel?
No, I mean, unless anybody has any questions.
Go for it. You have a question, is that what you said?
Let's try this. Just, what is one thing maybe somebody heard that Aaron just said that you really liked? Not everybody doesn't have to say, but just get a few, right? One or two things, three things. Yeah.
Getting out of the building,
Yeah.
being part of the community.
Yeah.
I think showing the community that individuals can be valuable to our community and like what they can bring to the community.
Definitely more person-centered things going on, and you've started with 2 people, it sounds really wonderful, some natural supports and connections are being made, and that's what it's all about, so.
We're trying. It hasn't been, we've had a few individuals that didn't like the changes or the focus on them, and they just had to leave since then, but I guess if you don't like change, then.
I also have a question. How did you get connected with the volunteering opportunities for your people? Like, how did you build those connections?
That's 100% Rachel. She's the community connection resource for the board, and she knows hundreds of people.
Any way we can.
I think-
helps Anna.
Aaron, because there's only one Rachel, I feel like, are you guys, like, when you're looking at next steps for the DSPs and kind of shifting what they do, do you see an opportunity for, like, taking more ownership in that community connection?
We are, so I've started reaching out to my local community, not where I live per se, but church, the pickleball group team that I'm part of, the same with the staff, they're reaching out to people they know and the hobbies that they're part of. We're slowly getting some connections.
Yeah.
But it's work, it really is work. But it's rewarding work. The good things are worth working hard towards.
So how much support did you have to provide, like getting started with the gentleman that's at Geneva Hills? Was he just able to step in and the two guys were there to work with him, or did your staff kind of do the fading thing?
He was easy. I think he probably ruined me for the rest of it, you know. But, so Rachel sent Clayton an email, set up a meeting. He came in, we talked to him, introduced him, we took Cliff out to Geneva Hills, introduced him. And the two guys that he's gonna be working with, they hopped on side by side together and ran all over the property. This is the trees we gotta take down, these are the activities we're gonna do, here's the cabins that need work. You know, what do you think? And the updates I've been getting are, he's just another part of the guys,
He wants to go every day.
wants to go every day.
Yeah.
Well, I think it shows like they spent time knowing this would be a good, you know, it was led by Cliff, like this is what they learned from him. And I think that's where the ease comes in, is when you actually are paying attention and see that connection is not as hard. Plus, this actually being in the building all day long is not him. This is him, it's easier, because this is what he used to do before he had to go to an ADS all day, every day.
So I should back up a little too, to the plan. Just, wasn't much information in the plan. So we started with our first interest inventory with Cliff, and then had a bunch of different interests that people go to, you know, sports, outdoors, indoors, sewing, crafting, that kind of thing. And it's kind of boring the way we do it, but we're redoing it. You know, softball. Do you like softball? What do you like about softball? Camping. What do you like about camping? And from there, you know, archery, fishing, camping, and then talking to her after we did those inventories and mappings, she said, hey, there's a new guy at Geneva Hills, let's reach out to him, and he came in and this was very much on board. We're hoping maybe in the next week or two that he's able to maybe start in 2 days.
So what do you think the energy of the staff, why do you think it's so much different now than it was when you first took over?
So from a few of them, I've heard that just the negativity's gone.
Why do you think that is?
There was, I don't know that they felt supported from leadership. Issues, they felt like people were being very critical of them. They were trying, and they tried hard. But also, the individuals we served, they were hard to get on board too. And they very much did not like the changes, but as we started having those conversations, explaining it more in depth, the reasons why we gotta make these changes here, that way we can get out of here. They very much got on board.
I think your picture of hope that you drew up there, I think that was something that was missing with the staff too. I think they saw that and go, wow, they see that as well. It's people who serve, that's giving them some energy.
Yeah, it's changed again, the atmosphere for the staff has changed again just in a couple of weeks. They're all jumping on board and wanting to do more. They're staying later in the day to develop resources, you know, look towards outings that we can take places. Josh set up an LPT meeting Tuesday, and through that, they all signed up to get a pass. And now, this morning, I heard them talk about a staff and individual scheduling that LPT route, because the center is now a stop on the routes. And so they're, I forget her name, Courtney. She's actually gonna come in every now and then and get on the van with them to take and show them how LPT works, the places, the signs where it says, okay, this sign says the bus will be here between 15 and 25 after. You know, and then the next bus that comes through will go this way or that way. So.
I know you talked about some folks who were having a little bit of difficulty with the change, and so I actually had a conversation with the individual that was having some difficulty with the change. And knowing some of the strides you all were trying to make, I talked with her about talking to the staff and center about what she wanted to do and ideas that she could give of places that if it was going to be going out in the community, that she wanted to venture to and to do that. So she thought that was a pretty good idea, and I don't think she quit. I think she returned.
Can you need her initials?
DT.
She's got me out. she's coming back.
Well, yeah, I know why she's right now, but
Yeah.
yeah, but she's,
But she did that. She
she's
did
doing-
do that.
she did do that, good.
So,
Because I was trying to empower her to embrace the change, but to let you know why it was a problem for it to change for her. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad to know that she did that.
the staff, they took a whole day with her. We've got giant posters that we're starting with right now. There's a picture of her, the doodles that she wanted to go places. She's got a page that flips down, got the things she doesn't like to do, but she keeps thinking. She doesn't want others to see that, just her and staff. And it really is great.
Yeah, so that's what I encouraged her to do, so I'm glad to see that she did.
It did. That was the very first thing she did. The next one when she came in, she goes, can I make a poster for myself on the things that I wanna do and where? She did.
Because, you know, being MUI, sometimes we see different sides of things, and we also are trying to not only be the, oh, you know, it's gonna be this risk, or it's gonna be this supervision, or oh, you shouldn't try to do that, or it's gonna be, we want them to understand through that process themselves of why there's certain things wrapped around, like somebody who maybe can't go out and volunteer in the community because of a certain supervision level or a risk or a concern. That's, I think, some of the things that when maybe the question came up of how did you accomplish that without them having to have a supervision level? Because we've had some problems with that in the past, with somebody who wanted to volunteer do that. So stopping and reframing it to them helping understand that struggle back to you all, I think is gonna be an important piece, and I'm glad to see that work.
Communication. Well, if there's no more from me, since Kristen said I had to, this is Tim and Richard. Boyd? That's right. That wasn't right. Vote from Star.
Happens a lot.
We are married, we have been. Our last name is Vogt on purpose, right? It's not like a random thing. We have been married for 21 years almost and working at Starfire for 23 years. So, just take a second and notice what we just did. So number one is, you've got Aaron up here with the support of Rachel and Pam and Kyle and everybody else on the team. And he's expressing something new. So it's a pretty vulnerable place to try something, right? It's tough. You try to change things yourself, or you try something, and it doesn't always go perfect. No change happens all at once, right? So it can take a lifetime. And so one of the things we can do with each other, for each other, is just to affirm that, notice that, like celebrate that, high five that, right? And that's what we're just doing real quick. We could let the moment pass and say, wait a minute, well, that was great, thank you, Aaron, please sit down, because these important people are here. But instead we say, hey, let's take a second and let's just celebrate this small win. And these good progress that I think everyone dreams of. Even the people that say, I don't want it, they still dream of it because they're willing to draw. I'm just not sure what it looks like. And we've got a few examples, right? A couple other things I noticed that I think are really critical is embrace the easy. If someone's ready to get out, get them out. Because that helps everybody else get more attention, more support. So it is more difficult for someone to show up in the world, right? They need more care. They need more support. They do have a history that makes it a challenge to be safe. We would rather have the person out working in the woods that doesn't need to be in here. And that provides us with some capacity to focus on the people that do, right? So we always say, quick wins, go, right? And it may not fix every single person, but the beauty of that is person-centered thinking. You start to say, well, one person doesn't need what the other person needs. Obviously, the person working at the camp is not going to need the safety that you're referring to, right? I also think that it's beautiful to think about looking at your own network. And we're talking about that. Today is all about other citizens. So everybody that you know, Aaron, is an other citizen that you can invite into your work. So one of the things that we always learned was all of our staff would say, well, I don't see people with disabilities as any different from everybody else. I think they're amazing. I'm like, well, good for you. That's what we're paying you to do. Thank you. Now, can you please share that vision, your eyeballs, with everybody that you know, your neighbors, your cousins, your old friends from high school, right? The more that we can invite those people into the story and seeing things the way that our beautiful big hearts see things, the better off our work's gonna be, more support gonna be, right? And then the last couple of things is, I saw a curiosity. What is it about that you would like? Because that just opens it up, right? Well, I'm interested in fishing. What about that is it that you like? Is it the challenge of competition? Is it just hanging out with some people and eating picnics? I mean, what is it, right? And then we can build off of that, which is really cool. I love the strategy of saying there's a new guy there. Let's go ask him, right? Because we get in the story like, that won't work. The person we went to 10 years ago said no. Well, here's a new guy. Let's get to him before he gets wrapped up in the story from the person 10 years ago. What a great strategy. Every time there's a new guy, or new person, I guess we should say, go in that direction. Get to that person first and try to ask again. They'll likely have fresher eyes, right? And then lastly, keep remembering that we can always circle back with people. So to your point, we had people leave our day program, but some of those people are still working in our community building efforts now. They left. They didn't want to change. They did want to change. We just had to circle back and make what we were offering, right? And if there's one thing I know about the story of disability, it's that a lot of times it's very stagnant. So if someone does leave your beautiful day program, my hunch is that when you circle back to see what are you up to now, they're still gonna need what you're offering. So remember, we're not really losing people. We're really more about like, well, let's see if we circle back in a few years, you might be ready for this, right? And somebody's followed, we can always pick that back up. So I just wanted to notice that, because I think that was an awesome story, and what a great drawing of that vision. Good shading, by the way. I like the yellow with the little peach outline here, and then you smudge it in, and it even blends in with these blues and greens. You wouldn't think that, right? You'd be like, oh, purple doesn't go with yellow or green, but when you smudge it, it actually turns out pretty nice, right?
Do that, Aaron.
It was me, Aaron, don't.
It was Kristen.
Yeah, your lasagna, that was great.
I know.
Inside jokes. I'm Tim, this is Bridget, and we have a lot of gratitude for being here with y'all today. Our favorite people in the world are people who want to keep at the question of inclusion of people with disabilities. We really admire and respect anyone that's willing to take one step and then another and accidentally take one back, but then keep moving forward. Those are our favorite people. Those are our heroes. So we're grateful for you. And we just want to say it. We think that in our work, this is the time. We are the people. Never in our history has anyone said, how can the people with disabilities of Fairfield County be more fully included on an individual basis in the kind of life they want? Because it was always like, well, send them to this program, send them to this building. They were always dead, right? This is the first time anybody's asked them. Never in the history of Ohio have people said, how can we figure out how to really fully support each person? Never in the history of our country, in our world. We do not have good stories and good ideas about how a human being whose body or mind shows up differently gets fully integrated in their world, right? We have some stories, and we're getting a few glimpses in commercials here. We don't have great stories. So we are the people that are doing that. I think that's pretty cool. And I think it's worth celebrating ourselves for that too, which is we are the ones. In 50 years, people are gonna write books about us. I can't believe the people back in Fairfield County, man. They were really rocking and rolling. Look what they did. That's pretty cool. The day's about that. We also think that your team isn't big enough. And we don't need your staff. We like to think of the community around us as a supplement to your good work. So the question really is, who can you find around each person's life that you can invite in other citizens, people that can be a support to the person when you're no longer there, people that can give a new perspective, people that can teach a new skill, right? So we think that some of our work in our field is moving toward less of being the sole person or people in the lives of people with disabilities and more into being a convener or an inviter or a connector. So that's a little shift too, to be a little scary. But anyway, we'll talk about that today. So, Bridget, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, plenty, but we'll keep talking, yeah.
All right, you've got a game you're gonna play today, right?
Yeah.
Raffle? You gonna
No,
talk
yeah,
about
so we
that?
promised some raffle prizes. So we sent you guys a few, like some homework, if you did it or didn't, it's gonna be okay. But so we shared some of our stories, some of the highlights of our work, just to give you some idea who we are and what we've been working on. But just to hear those stories today, those are the stories that matter, right? The closer to home, the better. But so throughout the day, if you share, so on Zoom, Kristen's gonna keep an eye out for you guys. If you have something to say or a question to ask, let us know. But we have just numbers and there's some gift card, we got 5 gift cards to give away at the end. So if you speak aloud, basically, give you a number for the end of the
Are
day.
you giving them out now? Because they've already done some speaking.
Oh, geez, you're right. No, that's too hard.
This is how
We're
this
not going
works.
backwards.
I'm the generous one.
No,
Stickler.
we didn't give the
Telling
rules
you
yet.
no.
New
So when
rules,
you do
game
your-
starts now.
When you do your session evaluation, I just want to make sure that there is a clarity on who was generous.
Yeah, and I might need reminders if you don't. One per person. Generous. Yes, Kristen's gonna keep a track of
Ebenezer
who
Bridget.
Well, wait. Yes, so, all right, back on track. So what we're actually talking about today, one, Erin was with us. We like to break up, we know you guys, you have a lot of experience, you have a lot of wisdom. And it's gonna be your world when we leave, it's not ours. So the chance to talk to each other and learn from each other is pretty important. Overall, what we're talking about today is community, we all live and we know people, so. We're gonna do some small groups and some breaking up. And we're gonna do that right now. We're gonna have a question for you guys to discuss. Want you just to spend some time, we're gonna break up into groups of 3. And the question is, how did you meet your close friend? Get a few minutes each to talk about it. If you're not the person speaking, just do some listening, hear what they say. And then we're gonna come back and talk about it. So, groups of 3, because there's only so much time, so if you do bigger groups, you won't have as much time to share that.
Don't include her. Okay, don't include her if she'll be in. So unclick that.
Oh, I see that. It's mine would be about 3, yeah. Like, was it about somebody? Yeah, I see that, yeah.
Who are about ready to go. You can put a time out. I will keep time and then we'll close the room. Chances
I
are.
started.
Okay, you got it? You give me a minute warning so we can close that.
But also someone.
Okay, all right, welcome back. Zoom room breakout people and here in person. So we do want to hear a bit about what you guys had to say. We, within this small groups, we kind of have a practice that we want to share with you all and encourage you to use, is the practice of we want to hear what was said in your small group. What we ask is that instead of sharing what you yourself said, which I'm sure was amazing and genius, 100%, is to share somebody else's voice and to say what you heard from somebody else or what you're appreciating about what they said or what's kind of landing for you. One, we are all in the practice of being people whose voices aren't often heard. And it's our own practice that we kind of have to be in that rhythm to think of, and how do you bring that voice into the room and into the space and share it in a way so that everybody hears it. And we all like to know that somebody listened to us, right? So it's a chance just for us to say like, I heard you, what you said was important to me, and I'm still thinking about it. So what'd you guys hear?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely start because one of the ladies in our group, by the way, I'm Sean, I'm with MSI, Muskingum Starlight Industries Fuse Network, employment coordinator. One lady that was in our group said that she had met her friend through like a Special Olympics where they created their own support group and now are like really close friends with others that was involved in that. And it really impressed me because, that is something that, you don't really think about every day as far as, doing Special Olympics and your children, and the others have the same children. So they have the exact same, I don't want to say past, but they have the same path that they're traveling, where they have children that are competing and that they're supporting. And so they have others that kind of know what they're going through and can share the experiences and have that support group for each other.
Okay, great. So sometimes we meet in some circumstances and we're able to create or jump out of that and get to know people better in a different way and in a different setting even, I think, just to generalize that. Thank you, Sean. Other thoughts or what you heard about how people met their close friends?
I'll go. Hi, can everybody hear me? Charity from Fairfield County Board, I'm an ISD. So someone in our group had mentioned that their best friend actually didn't like them initially. They thought they were mean, and kind of along the same lines, it wasn't until they got involved in a similar situation, which was a sport in high school, that they became really good friends and are best friends. So I think a lot of us can kind of relate to that sometimes. That first initial interaction, maybe you get the wrong impression, and then you get to know the person and you're like, oh yeah, okay, like you're cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Who you start with, but then finding sort of some common ground and getting to know each other better. So how you get introduced to somebody, but then how do you actually get to know them? And it's chances, if you're playing the same sport and you have those things aligning for you, it might be a little stronger side.
I want mean people on my sports team. I want them. Yeah.
Mean and competitive. Anyone else? Other thoughts? I would have expected the in-person people to be more likely to speak.
I know.
So Zoomers, great job. In the room, somebody, anybody?
I think we took the question to a second level where we said, did you meet your friend and then your significant other?
Sure, yeah.
Mallory met her husband online, and she met her friend, close acquaintance friend through college. So yeah, we took it as kind of twofold,
Sure.
right? Because your spouse can be your best friend, but also you can also have a childhood friend or just an adult friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Friends on all sides. We all need more of them from all places. And that brings up another thing of where we spend our time, right? So when you're in college, I mean, we can probably all relate when we were younger and doing things, and that sort of, I don't know, seems like your whole focus, right, was on meeting people and making friends. But there's studies abounding about, where you spend your time, right? So your coworker, because you spend time at work, your coworkers become your friend, like where you choose to spend your time is often where you make those connections. So if that aligns with some of the stories you guys heard or shared, it's hard to make a friend.
Well, Catherine had said one of her friends she met in college as well, during like a freshman orientation, they kind of go camping, like a group thing for all the new freshmen, and so that's where she met one of her close friends there, but she also mentioned in general, just all of her friends are kind of spread out in like 4 or 5 different states. She has one here in Ohio, they're kind of all over the place. Which is interesting because obviously that's hard to keep up with, but she still does, even though she doesn't see him often, she said she'll FaceTime him and stuff like that, so. I thought that was interesting, cause all my friends are pretty much in Ohio, and I can't even keep up. So, I think that's cool.
Yeah, very much. I think when we think about our close friends, sometimes we don't appreciate the effort that goes into keeping them or maintaining a bit. But it does, like there's efforts to be had or made, and sometimes people have been around enough that it doesn't need constant. Like, right, like some relationships have been there long enough and there's understanding of how often and what's needed to keep yourselves close, feeling loved by each other. Versus some of those maybe in the beginning, right? You kind of think of like a little new plant needs a little more attention and tending, right? So you can kind of relate that to, I think, our relationships too.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Anybody else feeling like they need to share? All right, well, thank you guys very much. So part of that is just to say, we've all done these relationships, right? We've learned some lessons, and we're just gonna talk more about how this all kind of rolls into our world and the people that we work with and partner with.
Great stories. Plato, one of the ancestors of democracy, said that people earn friendship by eating a pound of salt together. I would kill you if you sat down and ate a pound of salt. Don't do that. Dr. Tim does not recommend it. However, what he was meaning was a lifetime of meals. Over time, you would eat a pound of salt together. And the second part of that quote is, and it's a title we have to keep earning. So, come back and checking in on our people, or else we don't earn the title friend, right? So all that wisdom that you all have in the room, you know, and on the Zoom, you know how to make friendships. You've done it. You know how to keep them. You know how to turn a stranger into a friend, right? You know what that means to your life. It might mean love. It might mean marriage. It might mean just support, right? I think it's really interesting when I think about like the people that met in college or the people that met in high school. They were surrounded by 20 or 30 other people at that very moment when they met their best friend. And any one of those 20 or 30 people could have had that magic, right? It just happened with this person. So I always think that friendship must be abundant. It must be always there. The potential for it is present all the time. You could email me next week and say, I'm gonna be in Cincinnati, can I talk to you and Bridget? And then you could say, my sister lives down there, and all of a sudden, for the next 10 years, we just get together every time you're in Cincinnati, and in 10 years, we're best friends, right? It can happen, but we have to keep at it. Y'all know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Debbie asked, or actually she commented and said, I also think it's easier when you have a common interest or experience.
Absolutely, yeah. So at Starfire, we kind of think about 2 aspects of community. The first being what Debbie mentioned, is that right?
Yeah.
Which is a common interest, right? So what do I have in common that is in community with other people? It might be faith, or it might be interest in art or something. We also, though, have a bias toward local and neighborhood level. So we're really interested, because we know most folks with disabilities don't drive. We're really interested in, are you asking Bridget permission to give somebody a raffle ticket? You are allowed to give them out free.
I have them. I'm giving them here.
I thought that this was your story, Bridget.
Raffle situation.
Our children think she's the generous one. It's just a, anyway. So
spend 2 days with.
So at the neighborhood level, we were thinking about what's the difference between passion and neighborhood? What's the difference between a geographic community and a community of interest, right? And Bridget taught me this. She said, in a neighborhood, we're all members. When we're in a neighborhood, No one can say, it's not my thing, right? So even as important as an art community is, even as important as a interest in the history of, Ohio is, that's great stuff to start with. But people could say, no thanks, not really interested, right? Moms and dads can say, that's her thing, that's not our thing. And all of a sudden, it's on the service system to figure out how to do that, right? So there's a special, all we're saying is there's a special kind of magic when you can combine passion with place. If you can draw that Venn diagram, community of my zip code, and then community of the things that I'm interested in, whatever's in the middle of that, that's the money, that's the goal, right? That's where you're going for. The other stuff matters too, but we're really looking at that. Okay. Yeah.
So we have a special docket that is for individuals that get charged with crimes that are at the municipal misdemeanor level. And one of the focuses that we do with them, because it's a prevention court, if you've gotten yourself in this situation, is always bringing them back to, you're here and you're in front of a judge, but you're part of this community. And so how are you gonna grow to be a better part of this community as your outcome from leaving from this, not to be singleized as a part of the criminal community or part of the court community, but what you're gonna do to respect to go back. So that's always the thing that we are trying to circle them back to as a whole.
And what's your name?
Jen.
Jen, thanks for that, Jen. It just makes me think of a story. I built a circle for a man who was in jail, had a disability. And my operating question was, who can help him walk a good, safe path out of this, right? And I would invite you all, this is gonna get weird, but you signed up for it, all right? Don't just think about the gifts of community as the positive, happy stuff. My question for this man's life was, who do I know that has spent a couple years in jail and is moving their life forward well? And then I found a person. And I said, would you meet him? And would you help him do that? So sometimes the things that we're ashamed of, or that people are hiding, or the struggles that people have are actually gifts to somebody who's in it.
Which is why we also have a post group that when they graduate from the program, they have an opportunity to get together with those same peers who ended up however in that and have gone back out to keep supporting each other to continue to keep doing that.
And in that post group, now start thinking about how can each person have their own individualized post program, their mentor, right?
Yeah,
It's like a
that's what
12-step program.
that's what we're
Who's my
building.
sponsor?
Yeah, they're building to be peers, to be mentors to other people, and they've been doing that, so yeah.
It's all about other citizens. I really do believe that. So let's hit the next slide, please. Just to give you some background, this, Kristen, is Starfire. We ran outings about 500 for 500 people every single month. We go to pumpkin patches and have dances and go on trips to Disney World and volunteer at the nursing home. And we opened up a day program for 150 people. They would come every day. We were building the hell out of Medicaid. We were super successful. Oh, everybody's patting us on the back. You are the saints. And we're like, oh, no, thank you. Don't say that. But yes, thank you. Keep saying that we are, right? And then all this stuff was going great. I was the director. Bridge was rocking and rolling with the programs. We were pretty proud of ourselves. And then we came to an interruption. So Kristen, the next. And this is just a bit of data. So it's what we say is tattooed on the back of our eyelids. We see the world with this lens from now on. Ever since we first heard it, that was 12 years ago. We had a mentor of ours, Jack Peeler, down in Butler County, who asked 51 people with disabilities in Greater Cincinnati a simple question: who's in your life? A simple question: who's in your life? And he separated out their answers into family, paid human service professionals, people like us people, right? And all the people that we know in the system, special ed teachers and therapists and doctors and Special Olympics coaches, et cetera. friends and other citizens without disabilities, and then other people with disabilities. So Kristen, if we could have the next slide. What he found was that on average of the 51 people, they had about 8 family members. Okay, mom, dad, brother, sister, et cetera. Next, Kristen. On average, they had about 25 of us folks, right, in their life. What was interesting about this was that in the family story, people's numbers got smaller, right? And all of a sudden it was 7 or 8, but 10 years later it was 5. 10 years after that it was 2, right? And you can imagine where it goes. And what was interesting about this part was that what we found was most of the people in the story, well, let's just point up here to this inner part, these few people here. This close to the center here, that's us, the awesome people, right? And then here in the middle, these are the boring people. You guys know them, right? They kind of clock in, clock out. They're here for a little bit. They don't really care as much as us awesome people. We kind of like, well, they'll fill a shift, but they're not really great like us. And then we've got some people out here. These are the people that Jen sees. The people that put people in restraining holds. The people that money goes missing. The people that we say are, as the cool kids say, sus. We were talking teenage lingo before you all got here. These are the sus people, right? And we're worried about them because what we found is it's not 25 people for the rest of my life. If we could sign up 25 people to work in everybody's life for the rest of their lives, we do it, right? Sign us up, put them on the payroll, 70 years. It's 25 people at a time. Because this person takes a job in Miami, and this person has a baby, and this person goes back to school, and this person gets promoted out of the field and becomes whatever, and this person, it's just temporary. So what we found was, in numbers wise, it's 25 people over, say, somebody starts, let's just say at 22 in the system, right? And let's just say they ended their life at 72. That's 50 years in the system times 25 people a year. So the paid service system, us, put 1,250 people in their lives. And those 1,250 people had a lot of power, like we do, like Starfire did. Here's where you go. Here's what you're going to be doing. We're taking care of the budget. Here's what you're going to be eating, right? So all of us have this power in telling people what to do, but we're temporary. And that power just kept kind of like pervading every aspect of people's life. Where you say it's kind of like your barber, your hairstylist, right? They don't really have power over you. They can't tell you what to do on Tuesday night. They can't tell you where to drive or how to get there, what to eat, right? That's the kind of power we as a service system have in the lives of people with disabilities. So we have to be really careful with that power, but also noticing that it's temporary. Because out of those 1,250, only about 25% of them are awesome like us, right? And then there's like probably 50% of them that are those boring people that are our colleagues that we're like, gosh, I wish they'd leave already. But there's always like 10% that are sus. And that's that means 100, what's 10% of 1,250? 125, right? This isn't a math class, but that's a serious number, which is like 125 sus people in a person with a disability's life over their lifetime. It's kind of a big deal. And it gets to be a bigger deal, Kristen, when we hit the next slide, which is Jack found that each person with a disability only had 2 friends without a disability. And they only had 3 other citizens without a disability in their life. So we got an empty social circle, right? Now, I'm slowly getting off social media, but at my height, I think I have like 1,500 friends, which is pretty awesome. More than you would.
Copy Pete.
They're really friends. But I could have put out an SOS and said, I need help moving, and if I offered pizza and beer, I could probably get 10 people to show up. Right? But what happens if you're starting with 5? What happens when a sus person's in your life? What happens when you're looking for a new job and your network's 5, right? So we started to see that the big problem is hearing. This big hole in the lives of people with disabilities. It wasn't the full life of the staff. We're all rock and rollers, we're doing a great job, but we're still missing these people. Let me do some more math. I love math. I know, I'm not very good at it, but I do love it because it helps us see things differently. In greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, there's 1 million people, roughly, okay? There's about 20,000-ish people with disabilities. There's probably on average about 3 or 4 people that are directly related to that person. So in greater Cincinnati, there is about 100,000 people with disabilities in their families-ish. Okay, it's about 10% of the population. That means there's 900,000 people that could be somebody's other citizens and friends. So if this is a business, if we're a business, we can start to say, wow, where is the market share for inclusion? Where do we search? We're constantly searching for this person to find friends and other people with disabilities and paid staff. But we're missing out on 90% of the community. So it's just kind of a bad business strategy, right? Which is, what if we could open up our market? That's what you started doing. You're starting to ask. It's funny. I mean, like, this is controversial opinion time, but people say staffing crisis, and I get it. It's important, and it should be honored and taken seriously. But my question is, can we at least work on the staffing crisis by involving people that can fill that place? You just solved the staffing crisis for one person one day a week, and maybe 2. That's important. Now what happens if we keep doing that more and more and more, right? So just something to bring up. Next, Kristen. This is the last part of the chart where it says, out of the 51 people, they had an average of 68 people with disabilities in their lives, right? So that this is the Start Our Day program. This is the outing to go bowling with the Special Olympics. I should say outings to go bowling with the Special Olympics because we did a hell of a lot of that. This is everything that is special education, right? This is the pattern of our work, which is a bunch of paid people and a bunch of people with disabilities. So in an absent community, right? So we're gonna break up and kind of discuss this. Let's ask this question. What we're gonna do is get in groups, small groups. We're gonna do 4 of them. So
2 live,
yeah,
2 here and 2 Zoom.
that sounds good. 2 Zoom, 2 here, okay? And what you're gonna do is just kind of like, let's do, yeah, you all right here, and then y'all back there, okay? Back row in front of people, front row of people. And the question is this, the back row of people, you're asking, how does this pattern impact the person with a disability? Okay? Front of the room people, you're asking, how does this pattern impact their families? Zoom room 1 is asking, how does this pattern impact service and support workers, us? And Zoom room 2 is asking, how does this pattern impact the community, the mindsets of people who live in our neighborhoods? As Sesame Street would say, the people down the street that you meet when you're walking down the street. That's Zoom room 2. Cool. All right, 7 minutes. Let's hear it. Nominate a spokesperson for your group.
All right, especially in the
All those in favor?
It was Julie.
So I think impact of people with disabilities.
Yeah, we have the
You know,
family.
that, so that now you understand how it is, that it works out. You told her to get
The family gets isolated. And then I'm seeing that right now. A family, they can't.
All right, so our
It's
question
really-
is, how does the pattern impact people with disabilities?
Yes, the younger man.
They're all telling you what to do without choice.
You
doing right now?
His dad had a girlfriend, he doesn't get.
his grandmother. And then so that now just feel very keen that they get accustomed to it. But it isn't a routine that they chose to be part of. So then everybody says, that's what they've always done for each other. So that's just an example. They don't ever complain.
Did you start time?
Okay. Okay.
That's because it turns into, well, relationships, you know, I can't do this.
limited amount of
Ways
people
watch family.
Say it doesn't allow someone to see that's potential
You to take.
How much time do they get?
minutes, they're 5 minutes now.
I also think it's hard to trust
Yeah.
providers or anyone paid all the time with things because, you know, technically they're being benefited by money to take care of this person.
Okay, we're gonna do our best. It's a good conversation. More, right? So this pattern, I know Tim said it, Jack did this study, and we often go back, I don't know, he did it a while ago, but it holds true today. Like, we haven't, nothing has really changed that dramatically in our work or anything for that. So let's start, people with disabilities. Is that you guys? Yeah, oh, we got it, okay.
Well, first of all, I can tell you, I was totally robbed of my independence because I was nominated and I really didn't even have a choice. They didn't even let me like say, no, I don't want to be nominated, and then they voted me in and never rules of order completely. It was me. I was the one who told her she had restrictions, she wasn't to talk.
It's always candy wine.
There's really hopeless and
This is
helpless.
it. What's your name? Sorry.
I'm Julie.
Julie, okay.
But I gave her a sucker.
If you wanna write up a complaint, submit it.
Okay.
Julie likes to be liked too, so she knew if she was going through too much of an argument, we'd all have a problem.
We all ganged up, so I gave in. I knew, I would be liked then. So, basically what we came up with was that, you know, feelings of isolation, individuals, you know, become isolated, feel isolated, and then they develop that sense of hopelessness. And I love this, it was like it's Groundhog's Day every day. You end up doing the same thing over and over again and nothing to look forward to. And it's a taught hopelessness, we started in school, you know, everything's set up for you, you show up, you do it, you leave, it's set up for you, you do it, you leave. And you never learn those leadership skills and the self-advocacy that goes along with it. And you know that if you conform, it's all gonna work out fine and you can go home at the end of the day without your red sticker or your red clip that tells your parent that you had. So anyway, yeah, the hopelessness that's learned. And then as you get older, obviously your circle continues to shrink. Your service industry folks keep growing and your circle of natural supports keeps shrinking to the point where, you know, again, it's just that isolation and feelings of hopelessness, and then we start to see lots of other things happen as a result, and yeah, that's what we came up with.
Yeah, I think the Groundhog Day every day,
Yeah.
that's a pretty, I think we can all imagine what that would feel like. I think at the same time, just to appreciate if that's what you've been doing to hear change, right? Like Erin shared these beautiful stories and there is change coming, and just to appreciate, man, I've found the same thing. And all of a sudden, right? So just to appreciate that, from that, have a little empathy, but also have that hope,
And understand why it's so hard for them to make that change.
Yeah, to say how many days this is my comfort,
Yeah.
this is what I've been trained for a lifetime to appreciate and be grateful.
Right.
It was, I told 34 years I've been coming here, I don't wanna change what I was told.
Yeah, 34 years, you know.
34 years.
34?
Yeah, so just to appreciate, but yeah, so we get into this vacuum. So,
A bit of data for your MUI, right? What a frustrating experience. Why wouldn't I sock somebody?
Mhm.
Why wouldn't I have a bad day for 34 years,
Yeah.
right? Our data was, at the height of our day program, we had one MUI for every 2,400 service hours. When we shifted to solely one-on-one work, we had one for every 600 service hours, which meant that human beings with a disability were 4 times more likely to experience trouble in our day program. than when we were just supporting them individually. All of our MUIs and UIs, we were causing the trouble.
And it makes me think, we just met last week with a woman named Cashel and a group of artists that she's gotten to know. So there's a video out there about her. But when Tim first met her, the story was she got kicked out of a
Good.
vocational program. Yeah, okay, good.
In Cincinnati.
But and her response was, I kicked myself out, right? So, her perspective, but I always love thinking about that. So good job. Okay, let's, the families.
I can do it. We didn't pick anyone, but, so there was a couple different things, one being, also isolation, we talked about, like, as, families the circle gets smaller as the years go on, and sometimes people's lives change. Lisa gave an example of, the dad gets a girlfriend, maybe spends less time, and then it falls on the other parent, or, sometimes I have someone who's the dad kind of dumped, all the responsibility on an aunt, and, she doesn't trust anyone else to, know how to take on those responsibilities and know what's needed to be done. And so that's a big thing too that we talked about, was trusting others to kind of take on that support, and not always being able to, you can't always trust providers to do what needs to get done. You can't always trust the community either, because, or maybe sometimes you don't want to trust the community. That can be hard. And I also think one big thing that at least I've seen is that the community doesn't always know how to. They've never been taught how to interact with people with disabilities because they've never had to. And then when you live in a community where that doesn't happen, then how are families supposed to trust their community to take on that responsibility? And that can be really hard. So trying to think.
We'll see the impact on them, we'll see what the community can do. Yeah. So a lot of shared feelings, probably the pattern and how it impacts families and the actual person with the disability. There's a lot of shared experience right there for the families.
Sorry, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up. Your point was that, too, that sometimes for an individual, it's really hard to just turn to your family. There's certain things that maybe you don't feel comfortable going to your parents about, and when that's the only person in your close circle, then you're kind of isolated in that way too, to not have, I just had an individual who was saying like, I want a job, I want to do these things, but I feel like my parents kind of shoot me down on those things because they don't trust that I have the ability to do that, so.
Yeah, so families, I think a lot of times are somewhat the shield for their son or daughter, and they shield that hurt and those wounds. And it's harder the next time, like, oh, that's a great idea and you're enthusiastic, but I remember what happened the last time. So those feelings of isolation or that pain, and it's hard to let go of, and I mean, all of us who have kids, you want to protect them from everything, right? Like, we all want our kids to be safe and happy, but also being isolated. And it's, I think when we talk to families, sometimes their social networks look very much like this, right? So they start to spend more time with the therapist, and, where are you spending your time, right? Like, as a family, if you're going to appointments and special programs, and those are people you're going to, so it again starts to look like this. And again, you don't have those community networks, those other citizens, your neighbors, some of those things get left behind or forgotten because they aren't the focus of where you are. Okay, moving to Zoom world, service and support workers. Who's gonna share there?
Yeah, we didn't really pick anybody, did we?
You just said that.
Good job, Pam.
You got it.
Okay. So we just kind of talked about how the demand for the services and support is great. And at the same time, yeah, I just lost everything we talked about. You might want to help me. it's kind of like a log jam because there is so much demand for it, then we can't provide all the services and supports that's even needed. And sometimes the folks obviously don't know what they need, and we're trying to figure that out as well and support them. And the one thing that we didn't mention was I thought about was that, you know, services and support is ever changing. Staff are changing. We have a lot of turnover in all areas of service and support. So, and that's hard to build. You know, we talked about trust and building relationships. It's hard to even do that with your paid support staff, and then try to take that out into the community is another issue. But, and we wasn't really quite sure if that was what she was looking for as far as the answer, but that's what we came up with, I think. And if I missed something, sorry.
No, you're good.
I can add something too if you want.
Sure, go ahead, Chair.
Okay, so we kind of talked about how it, like, the impact is like twofold. That, you know, as you know, maybe family transitions to relying more on those natural supports, that's great because they can, you know, have that support that they need to get the things done that they need to get done, you know, get involved in things that they want to get involved in. But a lot of the times that's through a filter of like other agencies or other programs, not really maybe always just genuinely in the community. And so in a way, it kind of has that other side of the impact of where it makes it harder for the service and support staff too, because they're not helping the individual learn how to look to the community for connection and help. Like they might get into the habit of what parents did, where you know, they just kind of do it for them, or it's, you know, Groundhog Day where it's just the same thing day in and day out, and there's no exploration or creativity behind what they're doing. So in a way, they're kind of limiting themselves because they're not helping them make those connections in the community, or maybe it's hard to understand how to make those connections in the community because they're just going towards like Special Olympics or bowling leagues or you know, ADSs or that kind of thing. That's what we talked about too.
Okay, so service and support workers, I think Kim and Charity both said, there's a high demand for just people. Right? Like, we've talked about that already, but even within the work, there's a lot of demand to be made and a lot of different competing voices and what your job is and what you should be doing and what's necessary and what you'd like to do and all of that, and how does that work out? You're walking into a place that you've never walked into before, and as well, like, what does the family want? What does your job, like, all of those things that you have to kind of manage and figure out. And then we as support workers come with our own idea of what people with disabilities worlds look like, and we're pretty comfortable with the Groundhog Day mentality because that's all we've ever seen. So to break out of that or have the support to break out of that is another whole thing. We talked a lot with our staff all the time about, like, not to be the endpoint, right? So I think, Charity, you were kind of saying that, like, sometimes we get stuck and it's just about you and me and we'll be good. But if we've been around long enough, we realize that we are a revolving door ourselves and we have a limit too. So if my circle, if I was the person in the middle, it would look a lot like this chart too. I know how many people with disabilities, and to be honest with myself and with those people, how well connected I am to them. When my schedule lines up and it is my job to show up every day to spend time with you. But when that's not my full-time job, what does that look like? And I think that's an important thing for us to remember and just to be honest with, but it's hard in the moment to do. People in community. You guys want to share what you?
Sure. I'm Kathy. And I'm going to start with the graph. As we can see with this graph that you're dealing with a very small amount of friends and other citizens, and most of the people that you know are other people with disabilities. So it makes it a little bit harder to network in a community to begin with if you don't know anyone. And I think it all depends too. We were talking about what phase of your life you're in. You know, if you're younger, you might have more opportunities to meet people in activities or something like that. Also depends on what kind of community you live in. If you live in an apartment setting, for instance, you might not have a lot of chances to meet people because they're moving in and out nothing stationary. But then on the other hand, if you're living next to somebody, neighbors that stay for years and years and they're not friendly, that could make it hard also to network with the community. But we were also talking about if you get out and do activities and get involved in employment, that can expand their horizon somewhat. And it can give an opportunity for the community to start learning more about disabilities and capabilities and skills and so on, and reliability, and just to learn more. So it could go either way with people.
Yes. So I think Kathy, talking about how people can get out in the community and how they can find people and the experience of people in the community. Most of the people out there have seen this, right? So most of the people, before we came into this work, or if we had a son or, if you entered in because of the child that you were graced with, your experience is seeing people in vans, right? People with disabilities come as a group, they leave as a group. Aaron and his, right? Like some of the things that you have there as your nightmare are some of the ways we think the community sees people with disabilities, right? Not my job, not my problem. You've got that over there. Those people go there. And if that's the way I've seen it and nobody's ever interrupted that or brought it to my attention, that's not actually the only way. There is a different way. There are different people. There are people who enjoy the same things, right? So in our minds and in the communities, what they have been presented with for a lifetime, depending on how old they are, right, is the majority of, even from special ed. We're getting better, right? But there's still a room. There's still separate eating, like I know in my kids' school, right, from the beginning of time, it is separate. So if that's the way we as community members are seeing the world and how it's been presented to us, is it surprising that this pattern keeps going, right? Because you all got it. Those professionals, the trained people, the people who've been trained for a lifetime, they've got that under control. I don't know how to do that, right? And I will own my own part in being the person who showed up and making a great job managing a group of people with disabilities and having a great time. And we looked great out there, but we never expected anything more than a hello and an order for yourself, and like our expectations of what being in community was versus what the possibility maybe would have been. There's a lot in this conversation, so.
I would just say, one rule, one simple rule, get plural language out of your head, okay? There's no such thing as the community, and there's no such thing as people with disabilities. So to your point, the community, you can never say, we'd like to teach the community how to know people with disabilities, right? Because you're really asking the question of how could, what's your name? Catherine come to know Tim, right? So every time you hear the plural, just take it out of your language, because you can't accomplish that. It's impossible, because Catherine's different than Tim, and Catherine's different than Kyle, and Tim's different than Kyle. You know what I mean? So every time you catch yourself, well, how do we keep people with disabilities safe in the community? How do we keep Tim safe? Is different than how we keep Bridget safe. And how does Catherine come to know Bridget is very different than how Kyle might have come to know Tim. So we're always getting to that personal level, and that helps us get that. It's an abstract thought, impossible to solve. You're just working at an impossible problem. You can't solve it. So we're looking at strategies that are personalized. Good work. All right, next slide, please, Kristen. Just want to bring up some questions, okay? Because these are the ones that were challenging to us. We're not going to answer these. We're just telling you, we started to ask, is this pattern, how does it compare to my life? How many people are in my life? How does my family grow? When we get married, we double our family. That's the opposite of the experience of a person with disabilities. Family numbers dwindle, right? Our paid people, we're in charge of. Their paid people are in charge of them, right? Big differences. Our lives are full of people that don't necessarily share our same problems. So our stories were different. We're asking, like, has anything changed for the better? Jack did this survey in 1990. We've had the ADA since then, right? So we should be living in the Shangri-La of inclusion, correct? Thanks to our wonderful ADA ancestors. I really do appreciate them, but we're still not there. Right? This is still people's story. So we're still at the work of social inclusion. The big question is parents are asking, who's gonna be there when I'm not? Who's gonna have affection and love for my kid? Who's gonna look out for their well-being like I do? And that's a question we can only ask. Well, who do you know that this person can come to know? I have a great deal of hope that the person that works at the camp that this young man is going to could one day be invited to, hey man, he's going through some tough times. His parent just passed away. Would you be willing to kind of just keep an eye out, think about? Well, you can't say yes and then emerge, because they don't know each other yet. But what if he works there for 10 years? Then that yes is more possible, right? So we're looking at deepening of relationships. Who are the best friends people with disabilities might need? Think back to that first question that Bridget offered. How do we create those possibilities and probabilities in life people? It doesn't happen, Aaron, in that day center, right? Or it does, but it's limited to the disability side of someone's identity. How might we connect more people to a person with a disability? And then the big question is, what is our opportunity as a field, as an organization? Next. You all saw 3 videos. If you didn't, email Pam, you'll send out the links, right? If it got stuck in your junk or whatever. But we just want to ask some quick questions. And again, you get a raffle ticket if you answer. If you watched Jenny's story, who did Jenny come to meet in her story? What did you notice? How did people meet her? Yeah, baking.
Baking, yeah.
Cookies, yeah.
Baking cookies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the mother, she has help with 2 girls. They have a shop. So Jenny goes there to help out to volunteer.
Yeah.
And with baking cake and selling.
There's a moment in the video that is possibly one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in all of Starfire's videos. Jenny, if you watch the video, if you close your eyes and listen, it's likely you can't understand anything Jenny says. The only person in this room would be Bridget, who spent every week with Jenny for the last 7 or 8 years, right? Building this story.
I don't know why you all can't understand it.
Her speech is hard to understand. But in the video, if you watch it again, Allison, who has spent every Tuesday with Bridget as well, helping Jenny bake, finishes Jenny's sentences. And she's not watching a closed caption. So we know each other so well that we finish each other's sentences. That's what we're looking for, right? Because if Jenny's life gets in trouble, who are we going to? Allison and her daughters. Important notes. What about Telly? What'd you notice about Telly's video? Anyone? And Zoomers, you too. Roomers and Zoomers, it's open for anybody. You get a raffle ticket.
I've got the impression everybody wanted to talk about Telly.
Yeah.
They all want to talk about how he uplifted them.
Yeah. Yeah, but you could kind of
Kyle.
Hey, come on, Bridget.
I know. Skip Kyle.
Hold her accountable.
Very often.
That's right, I'm very shocked.
So, one, I can tell you this. Telly does not communicate with words. You didn't hear his voice in that video, right? But I had a staff who came to me and said, he's impossible. We can't include him. I had a different staff, Daniela, who you saw in the video. She said, we can do this. Somehow we'll figure it out, right? The second thing is, you'll notice Craig, who you're referring, I think Craig is helping wash dishes. And he says the quote, he says, he's kind of quiet. I don't always know what he's thinking, but he's on his job. And I'm happy to be around him, right? So when we get stuck in our loop of our Groundhog Day, Kelly's not able to be included, or he is unemployable by the state of Ohio. Maybe we gotta ask, where's Craig? Where are the people that can come to know him and are okay with the fact that they don't have to know what he's thinking? Why do we have to know what Telly's thinking before he can be included? We don't. We can just help him wash dishes and enjoy each other, right? The last thing is critical. Daniela, our staff colleague, she's awesome, and she said, we used to take a group of Jerry and Telly and Jenny and a bunch of other people to the food pantry in Telly's neighborhood. And she said, when we would walk in, they would say, hi, Starfire. So we said, uh-oh, we've stolen Telly's identity. We've made Telly Starfire. So now his neighbors, where he should be volunteering and helping out, are calling him and a group of other people that don't live there, Starfire. So we're taking the juice, we're taking the identity, we're taking the positive stuff from the community, we're stealing it as organizations, and we're not giving Telly that status. We're not letting him live as Telly, named and known in his neighborhood, right? All right, great. Jerry, what did you notice about Jerry the other day? Who do you come to know? So if you watch the video, you'll see a woman named Leslie, who isn't in this picture, but her friends are. Leslie's trying to reinvent a neighborhood. It's one of those neighborhoods in Cincinnati that everybody says bad things about, but Leslie lives there. So does Jerry. It's called Westwood. And Jerry and Leslie and all these people where Westwood works. That's their slogan, Westwood works. And they have parties. Jerry hooks up with Leslie. And Leslie in the video says, Jerry, remind us of who we're leaving out of this, right? So Jerry wants a good community too. So does Leslie. What's he do? He shows up to the beer festival. He sells tickets, right? He's a part of it. I just want to bring those things up as examples, and you'll see those, and then you'll get to actually meet with Katie, the videographer, who did a lot of this for us back then. She'll be here in April, is that right? So, or something. So you can ask her about those too.
Jerry just got an award this year. It had a name, but the neighborhood group gave him an award for being a volunteer, for his years of volunteering. So he's still, all of those neighbors, all those people still around. Starfire, not so much.
We just met a neighbor that was like, I know Jerry, he goes to all the meetings, he's awesome.
He's pretty, and it's not Starfire focused or centric at all.
All right, great.
I think we're skipping the.
Okay.
Just to say a couple other things that I think are beautiful and just efforts to be made. Telly, if you watch the video, the woman's like, he made this apron, right? So Daniela was working on like, how does he show up? He's joyful, he's also a gift giver, he appreciates their hard work, like all the ways that we can think of how people show up and how they, do, like those relationships do take work and effort. And sometimes it's us behind the scenes kind of helping create some of that effort and encouraging them. I don't know.
All three of these stories, starting when you talked about that Venn diagram of like place and passion and where those overlap, do all three of these have that overlap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so luckily I work with Jenny, I don't live in her neighborhood, so I'm sort of the oddball person, which is just one of the realities and compromises we have to make, but I talked to somebody else in her neighborhood, and they're like, there's this cool place, it was a while ago, she gave me like a little piece of paper over like community news or something, and that's how we found Bake Me Home, small, little.
They were doing it out of their house first, right?
It's just a nonprofit for cookies and.
And how far do these two people live from each other? Allison and Jenny at the time?
Yeah, not far, I don't know, but all within the neighborhood
blocks.
Beechmont Township or whatever it was called, but Anderson Township, Beechmont.
They didn't know each other. The question we always ask is, what would happen if your best friend lived around the corner from you and you never knew it?
That's good.
You gotta find people.
So they were there, Jenny connected with other volunteers, not just these women, but other volunteers that were there. It turns out they already knew each, oh, you go to my church. Oh, wait, we've seen each other, right? But it just changes the dynamic of, oh, you show up where I already show up. Oh, I already know you. Now I can talk to you at church, and all the overlaps that, and she and her family got involved. Her sister, aunts would go to volunteering at evening, like other sessions and stuff. So it just kind of went from there. But yeah, all those overlaps.
Remember, when you're trying to invite in other citizens, you gotta make it easy, okay? They think their job is to write checks and donate and to show up to the big party where we help people with disabilities once a year. That's what they think their job is, right? And you gotta think, well, then what gets in the way? One is we gotta invite them into knowing a person, not a group of people. Two, we gotta figure out how, if we make it local, it's easier, right? If I say you gotta drive 20 miles to see this person, they're gonna find a way, oh, sorry, I'm busy. But if we say, hey, on your way to church, the same church you go to, right? That's not a big ask for somebody. And we're not saying, could you, Allison, please adopt Jenny for the rest of her life? We're asking, can she help you bake cookies, do something that you need done as well for just a couple hours, maybe a week or a month? We're not talking about taking on too much. But again, that pound of salt, that pinch of salt, right? Every Tuesday for 3 years adds up to, I can understand the person no one else can. Telly, yeah, lives in the neighborhood now with the soup kitchen with all the people that volunteer there. And Jerry is absolutely in Westwood, right? So these are place and passion. Now, Jerry would not have sat down at an individual service plan and say, I want to address the inequities and collapse of my neighborhood, right?
He also probably wouldn't have said, I want to go to a beer garden.
No, he would have not thought that he was allowed.
Right?
Right, yeah. Yeah. So there are some things that we ask, and Bridget says is respectful guessing. What kinds of things could we introduce that are relatively safe and relatively good for all human beings? And maybe it's a win, maybe it's not, but.
The Westwood Works had a beer garden going on, like as a community, they were very, the social side of community, like they wanted to be very social. And I think I convinced Jerry to go because he also was involved at a food pantry. He'd been volunteering there and involved in that. And so he went when they were gonna collect food for the pantry, like, okay, you'll be there to collect the food, right? So like, not to drink beer, let's be clear, like, right, like, how do we break this down so it's, I'm not telling you should go and drink beer, but you'll go. You're gonna collect and deliver all the food that they collect, right? They need you there. So that was I think that was one of his first big entries into Westwood party scene. They're kind of party people, so.
Again, I think, remember, it's the sweet spot. If you start with not neighborhood-based, that's okay. It's the real courage is going neighborhood-based, because sometimes you're going door to door with strangers. So, hey, can I talk to you? Well, tell me about this place, right? We'll get into that in a minute, but really what you're looking for is warm connections and warm leads, and we're gonna do that right now, right? So what we're gonna do is a little bit of an activity, and we call this these are the biggest thing we need in our field. We think our idea muscles, we call them. Okay. How do you get so that you're ready to think about new ideas, new people, new questions, right? So we've got this handout for you in the room, and then there's on the stick, Kristen, there's a PDF that you can share your screen with. And we're gonna get in small groups and actually pairs. We're gonna get in pairs for this. So if you wanna stop share and then go to the stick and open up. Yeah, right here. Yeah. And then click on open up, 60 names fast, okay? And share that screen, but then if we could, share it as multiple pages. Is that possible for you?
This right here.
Oh, this one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay, so what you've got here is a little bit of an example of how do we find the people that we're looking for. And it's tough because we get a little stuck. Again, this is why we start thinking about a person. So when we invited you to this day, we asked you to bring a person that you know that has a disability. So we're just gonna take 2 seconds and just, you can close your eyes if you want, but we're gonna bring them into the room with us. So call to mind the person with a disability that you were thinking of. And maybe it's changed. But who is a person with a disability that you know for your work, for your life? Who can you imagine that you want to bring in the room? And just kind of invite them into the room. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get into pairs and you're gonna work with each other. We're gonna take turns. Each person gets about 5 minutes, okay? And we call this 50 names fast. You're not really gonna get to 50. but go for it. See how many names you can get. And I would give you a prize for the person that got the most names, but old Officer Bridger. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna look at some questions, which is, what is it about the person that you know that lights them up? And you might not have an answer to that. You might have to ask, what darkens their days? It might be an anti-question, right? What bums them out? We want to avoid that. What's the opposite of what bums them out? Right? So, I know they don't like sprouts. Well, that doesn't mean they don't like people at all, right? The second question is, what did they experience in the past that hinted at who they might be today? Maybe they don't have those experiences. So we're going to enter into respectful asking. Okay, these are just kind of some questions to hold. You might have more. What connections around them offer some possibilities? The second step is, I think it's helpful to kind of put this into buckets. It kind of gets our brain going, right? And we kind of, this is roughly 9 buckets of community life. There are probably 109. But let's just, for helping us think about how would a person explore the area of exercise and leisure? Maybe it's a sports fan, or maybe it's something that they really like to do around 5Ks, right? Think about creative expression, art of all kinds, music, spiritual and religious side of their life. What do you know about that? Home and family, friends, their workplace, the area of social justice. How do they want to expand a just world? What things do they like to learn, or would they like to learn? Community and neighborhood. So these are just buckets to think of. And what we're doing is, for 5 minutes, you're going to think about, how many names can I get for the person that I brought in the room to go in these little buckets, okay? You're not going to get through them all. So we're going to try for 5 minutes. This is probably the most important step here, is step number 3. Take some time and think with your colleague here today, but then also think of it with a person's family or their community. These are the questions you want to ask. Who do we know in the area of spiritual and religious life around this person? Maybe it's you. But to Aaron's point, maybe it's somebody Aaron knows. Maybe it's somebody that each of you knows. The even better question is, if you're stuck with that one, I don't know anybody that goes to that temple. Who do we know who knows people? So your job isn't to directly know people. Your job is to figure out, who do I know who knows? And then things start to get really interesting. The next question would be, maybe I don't know who knows. Well, then where would people in this area of social life gather? Where could I find someone who knows someone who knows someone, right? It's all a big treasure hunt. And lastly, what more could we learn about that? Could we interview some of these people? Could we have them teach us more about their aspect of that person's social life? Does that make sense? Okay, so we're gonna go 5 minutes each. We'll tell you when to switch. You're talking about the person with a disability that you know, that you brought into the room. So for 5 minutes, you're gonna fill this out. Your partner's job is to be an encourager and an affirmer. They're gonna say, great job, keep going. They're also gonna be kind of like provocative, like, come on, you can do this. Let's go, who else, and just push it, right? And then your partner's gonna be a help. Maybe they know somebody that you don't in that area of life, right? So we're networking. That's what this is all about, is sharing a network. Yeah, I know somebody at that temple. Great. I know somebody that loves chocolate and makes their own at their own house. Let's swap our connections, right? All right, great. Here we go. 5 minutes, we'll tell you when to switch.
Did you get it? Oh, were you trying to? I don't know if I can.
Look at that.
You can make it for us.
It's just one person. I think that was everyone. Okay, so everyone should have got the questions.
Join or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
So.
That's what I was kind of doing earlier, I was trying to like if someone was in the A&D, like the conference room, I was like, so yeah, I didn't want to.
They didn't join it.
She wants to join the thing. But he's been going That's exactly right.
Okay, so it's actually just gonna be 4 minutes, so it's time to switch if you didn't already.
I'm trying to find someone. I'm working with the employee, so that would be
think Steph's working. Some of but yeah, getting out. And that was the other That's just where, because they said they didn't come here because
Okay, 1 minute left.
You tell me when they're back.
Yeah, a whole nother thing. 2 months, 2 months.
This is just a snippet, you know, that's all you Yeah, 5 seconds.
And that way.
All right, so bring it back. I see some full pages. Good job. Mallory gets mine. That's really good. Bridget. All right, let's keep really quickly.
You were spoken for. Somebody talked about it.
All right, everybody, let's bring it back. So let's just hear
Picture last.
the partner that had a pretty good handle on this. Who do you want to give a shout out to? Yeah. Why?
Miss Addie,
Don't turn around.
Oh, yeah, that's important. So here's the deal. When somebody says something great about you, you gotta receive it. You gotta receive it. We all want to say, oh, no, it's not a big deal. We actually do want to celebrate our awesomeness, right? Because that's part of what we're trying to do. Get used to celebrating. Thanks, go ahead.
well, for one, I think Miss Addie, we both acknowledge that this is a difficult exercise, but Miss Addie just kept going through it, kept trying to think of other, if not named persons, where just titles. We can like friends, mom, family, church leaders, things like that. And so a lot of the ideas that Miss Addie had for people involved in this young person's life is about what they like, their interest, and she went from there. Like when she got started, she went from there to move outward. And so I really commend that.
Wonderful. Capacity. I can tell you the truest thing one of my mentors ever said to me was, well, Tim, it seems like the further you drill down into this, the bigger the problem seems to get. And I said, yeah, because we're really talking about the human heart to a certain degree. And we're talking about changing all of human history's mindsets around disability. That's how big the problem is. And I've never heard anybody actually affirm how difficult that this was. So I'm affirming it for you through my mentor. The second part of what my mentor said to me was even more important. Let you keep finding new ways to go at it. that it's not about winning. This ain't about finishing or being perfect. It's about keeping at it. It's about being as creative as you possibly can. You can take your cue from the human beings with disabilities that you care about. Every day they wake up against a world that has a history that leaves them out. And every day they find creative ways to keep going. So can we, right? There's always another person to talk to. There's always another perspective to enter into. There's always another move to make. It's more like a game, right? Because it's a life. And we just keep living. And we want more people in it. So Addie's reminding us there's always more people.
Well, and we grow.
Hmm?
And we grow.
And we grow.
So what we thought we liked, we learned something new.
I once had a woman that had said, well, I've been working in the field for 30 years. I've been working with my guys for 30 years. I was laughing. He doesn't like that, right? The possessive language. It's okay, you know, that meet people where they are, that's what we say. But the question was, well, what if your guys need something new of you? What are you gonna do about that? Right? And she got these big tears in her eyes. She said, I never thought about it that way. I guess I can change. I guess I can try something new. Yeah, thanks. They appreciate that. What else did you learn from this exercise? Anything? Bridget, you got some more raffle tickets to hand out, so.
I have something.
Yeah.
I got to talk to Rachel, which I planned on doing today anyway, somebody that she's helped in the advocacy group that's on my caseload. I see such a difference in her when we had our meeting. She's gone from being a negative person that never had a voice because she just let everybody else talk and do for her to, sounds like she participates a lot in the Solutions for Life group. And she was even planning on doing a presentation, and I'd love to see her go further with that. I mean, when we met, she really doesn't have any friends. She still doesn't do anything besides go there. But that's just the beginning for her. And I'm so excited for her in the future, and this was a wonderful start for her. And I think the sky's the limit for her. I'm really appreciative of that group and what Rachel and Susan have done with that.
So we're entering into, whenever we hear stories like that, we're entering into a question of social justice, right? And a couple things that we notice is that the sky is the limit, especially if we can tie into other people's energies that are not as finite as the ones that we carry as people on payrolls, right? So the question is, who else can we bring into this person's orbit to unleash her energy and her power, right? I'm concerned with the fact that people with disabilities get their advocacy stuck in the self-advocate language, and then it becomes, I can only talk about disability. But what about people with disabilities who are interested in Pride Month? What about people with disabilities that are interested in saving the planet? What about people with disabilities that are interested in, as Jerry is, a just neighborhood, a more inclusive Westwood, right? So the question is noticing that social justice and now saying, who else can this person meet? I would start having her meet with somebody in a social justice realm different every month for the next year. I'd go to coffee with her and I'd say, let's go talk to some women's advocates. Bridget has a person that she built a whole Women's History Day, right? And that's her whole story, is she just works with badass women, and that's her identity now. She has got a thick network of badass women because she just interviewed and learned about women's history and suffrage. I mean, she knows more about.
She's history and women, yeah.
She actually did a play where she reenacted, what were the names of the three women? Do you remember?
Alice Paul, Claudette Colvin, and I don't remember, I don't know.
Her project,
I mean,
like.
she loves Alice, I think that must have been.
Her project, like Jerry and Jenny's, was to create a play about badass women, like Alice Paul and Claudette. Oh, right, so that's cool. But that's who I'd be starting to tie her into. How do we get that energy outside of disability? Right. Yeah.
Just doing the activity in general, I think it was super useful. Because I'm newer to Fairfield County at least. I was at Franklin County practice for a couple of years, so like I knew the resources there a little bit. I knew my people better. Now I don't know the people as well, so I kind of didn't have as much information on mine, but she was spitting off people left and right for hers. And it was nice hearing some of the different resources, because then they sparked something in my head that I was like, oh, okay, I didn't think of that. So it's kind of nice to be able to know that you have peers that you can get assistance from, because you don't know everything and you're not perfect at what you do. So it's helpful to have other people who you can bounce ideas off of.
And here's a pro tip. Even if you do know everything, you just pretend that you don't. If somebody came and said, hey, Tim, I know a person with disabilities interested in bourbon, I'd be like, I live in Kentucky. Father Boster took our 8th grade class trip to Maker's Mark. I know everything about bourbon. I know. But I would act like I have no clue. I'd say, let's find some people and let's ask them about that. Because we're looking for things outside of me, right? So even if you know a lot about it, if you accidentally become the expert, you accidentally take the place of a potential person, right? So your job is just to say, I have no clue, let's go find out about that, right?
Yeah, and then you just get to drink more bourbon.
I mean, I'm just saying, I haven't found anybody that can do a bourbon project with yet, but we did do beer brewing with people, and that guy's been working at the breweries that we connected him for 10, 11 years now. Okay, let's draw, let's do some prizes. You all been really great, and such a good energy, and I love the optimism, and I love the kind of curiosity. That's what we need. We need optimism and curiosity. Those are the two main ingredients. So, Kristen, you want to do the?
Okay. It's Sunny's name right here. Then everybody gets a chance to win. Okay.
If Kristen pulls out her and Bridget's name, we're gonna know that
They're all mine. Somehow, they're all gonna go to this.
All right.
no, you keep yours. You get the
Here we
claim.
go.
Oh, yeah, we got a
Here
number.
we go. First winner.
First number.
Number 5. 5?
Ooh, Charity.
Oh, Charity.
Charity won?
Charity one. Yeah.
Charity. You can,
Oh, okay.
here, you can get Starbucks or Chick-fil-A.
I'll take Starbucks, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Next number.
22? Thank you.
Whoa.
Oh, Starbucks. Thank you. Cool. That name I did.
17?
That's me. I'll take it. Chick-fil-A.
You went Chick-fil-A.
Whoever did it.
The next one. Go ahead.
Number 25.
Oh, that's me.
One more, last one. Okay. Last one is number 2, Kathy Hartline.
Oh, wow, thank you.
All right, great. Thank you all. We appreciate your time, your energy, and your good work, and we encourage you in it. We're here for you. If you have questions, if you have ideas, things you can just send, Pam can connect us, no problem. We're here for you. We'll be back in June. In June, we're gonna talk about kind of social history and the things that we're really up against. It's gonna be tough stuff, but if we don't know what people in the community, those other citizens are assuming about people with disabilities, we can't tell the counter story, right? So we're really gonna study what's the mindset of my neighbors around disability? What kind of prejudice and bias do the people that live around me carry about the people that I care about? And then we're gonna say, how do we as kind of ninjas figure out how to be really, really deft at telling a different story than the one that they're used to hearing, okay? We'll do that in June. In August, we're gonna talk about change. What it personally means, what I have to let go of, what kind of things I got to step into, and what other people, you're gonna have to help and shepherd other people on a change journey. If you want to introduce a new person to a person with a disability, you're gonna have to help them think differently, right? You're gonna have to have some grace and some tenderness around that. We'll do that in August. And then in November, we're gonna get into some community building strategies and some interesting tools that we use to get people kind of mixed up. And we'll create like little interesting projects, kind of like what Jerry did in his neighborhood or Jenny did in her neighborhood. We'll start to think about how do we create things that get people mixed in each other's lives. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a couple.
You have a survey, don't you?
Oh,
yeah.
things Tim wanted to share.
Yes, yes, thank you. Share that PowerPoint again, Kristen.
Oh, okay.
We might get in trouble if there's 0. I mean, if there's 1, it's proof. So
Just
I'll do
here,
one.
here, there we
And
go.
as long as you.
Okay, what I do wrong.
Someone somewhere wants to
Stop share, stop sharing.
approve was shared.
Hey, before you guys go, while there's working on that, just real quick, so, we put together, it is like a meeting minutes, kind of in a newsletter fashion, but the printer situation told me no, they didn't want me to print it today. So, it did come to you digitally, and for those of you who work in our organization, the way we've been communicating, and I think we're gonna change it, because I think we're gonna change it, is that it has been going to directors, from directors down. So if it's not getting to you, I think what we're gonna do is just do like a staff, like everybody gets the blast out from what's coming up. Generally in that is what are we gonna talk about, what's happening, those meeting minutes which have links in them. And then like pre-work, so like they gave us stuff that they wanted you guys to have to bring. So really pay attention to those emails that come out. They come out the week before the meeting. If I get my act together, they come out the Wednesday before. But I don't always. I will next time though, for sure. On that, yes, one second. On that is, I want to give the shout out. I don't know, is Nicole even in here? Yeah, so we do a little provider highlight at the bottom corner of that. Hello, my name is, and so we just want to lift up a provider and give you some contact around that. So Safe and Home is an enabling tech vendor that we have a relationship with and we're working with. Nicole Little is our representative, and she is really cool. I think her perspective of life giving is really what she's about. She wants to make sure that people have access and have, there's no barriers to the opportunities for them. So she's eager to meet with you. I know she's looking to get into meetings, to have one-on-one conversations about not only what can Safe and Home give you, but she's even like, if we ain't got it, I wanna make sure you get it. So who else can I point you in the direction of? So just wanted to do that.
Yeah, this is our survey. If you don't fill this out, Bridget and I will be fired.
Pam said she's gonna do it, at least one week.
And then our children will, have problems in life, so it'll be on your shoulder.
Almost forgot this.
And just a reminder, if you have not submitted your email in the chat and you would like a certificate, please do that now. And in the room, if you are a provider and you want a certificate, please let me know. County Board, please make sure you're signing in. That's the only way you'll get your certificate from Jen. And if you're a provider, please make sure you sign in. Next month, March 22nd, we have Superintendent David Uhl. He'll be talking about leadership foundations. And then Andrea Spires from the Fairfield Foundation will be locating alternative funding. So don't miss it. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you. And Kyle has an
I want to
announcement.
thank Tim and Bridget. Thanks so much for coming back.
Thank you.
Not only for your presentation, but what we've done in the system. Thank you for that. I want to thank all the ISCs for being here, because then it's a provider meeting. And I mean, we got a great representation here and on Zoom, so thanks for coming. And Aaron, thanks for your presentation this morning, and we're really excited about where you're going. So thanks, everybody. Great day. Thanks, Kristen,
Thank you.
for keeping us all organized.
Whew.